This here is my brand here. This is what you're seeing right here. You could see these. This is the large dipper and the small dipper, which symbolize the men's pipe and a woman's pipe in our culture that you see in the constellations.
Walking out from the shadows come, looking for something more to breathe.
Adrian, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. A lovely book. What I found interesting is it reads like a memoir, but also reads like a meditation. I'm curious, what did you have in mind when you started to write it?
It was clear earlier on that I wanted to write it in a way that was more of a philosophy or learning, and not so much trying to lecture people. So I wanted to ensure that we were able to do it in that sort of way, to sort of sharing my stories and my journey.
The first scene in your book depicts quite a serious event, and I'm curious if you can tell us what happened in that scenario.
It was a time in my life where I found very difficult, and I knew that that's where everything kind of really changed for me, and things kind of it was a major turning point in my life. So, and it started, I think, it started that night, and that sort of set off, a sequence of other events that kind of led me to rehab. Certainly, I think I hit what they call rock bottom, and that was a scary moment. And for me, it really got me thinking about my life and wanting to get better. So when we back up and we look at how difficult things might have been growing up, the loss of my father, and I had alcoholism in my home, just a lot of hardships and loss, being separated from my siblings and things like that, and also being rejected, I think, because of my mixed ethnicity. Feeling that rejection, come from my maternal and paternal grandparents, my grandfather particularly. It wasn't easy. I found it really difficult, and I felt it, at a young age. And it was hard for me to kind of process that, especially in my younger years.
People know you for your music. People know that through this book, the challenge that you go through. I wonder if you can help connect that. How has music been a refuge for you through some of those hard times?
When I talked about hitting rock bottom earlier and wanting to take my own life, what I certainly felt in that moment was I had no control. I lost control of everything, and that was a scary, scary feeling to have that complete loss of control over yourself, and scaring the people around me that I cared about. And then moving forward into rehab from there, and understanding what was going on with me and learning about that and how to cope with all those things, and then rediscovering music while in rehab and being able to use that as a tool to kind of let go of certain things, to be able to release, kind of saying art is really good for being able to find a place for those emotions and those feelings to kind of live, and let go and put them out into the world.
Part of that journey is also experiencing the sweat lodge. You describe your first experience where you weren't planning to take part in a fast. You were there to help. What do those rituals mean for someone like you, but also for Cree people, to be able to take that space in a sweat lodge? And spiritually, what does that mean for you?
Well, I think, yeah, the first fast I ever went to, I mean, I was always aware of those things because my family was around them. And I've seen them, and I've certainly heard a lot about them growing up, but never really felt that I wanted to be in those places because what was going on personally with me. And it wasn't until I got to rehab, and then I went to the ceremony up in French River, just west of the Moose Factory, the community Moose Factory, and I attended the ceremony there for the first time with my brother. Who always invited me, when he'd come through, he said, "You need to come." And I always say, no, I'll get you next time. But anyway, I went that year, and I had no real intention of doing it, being really fully participating in anything that was
You want
going
to
on.
observe.
But I just wanted to know more about what it was about. And so I went, and they started off by building the lodge that day. And, people have their camps, and they build their tents and set everything up. And we had a feast that night, and the person running the ceremony began by rendering us the pipe ceremony, and then the prayer started, then the singing started, and it was such an amazing experience for me, and I felt really connected to all of that, even though I didn't really, put myself and immerse myself into that growing up, but I felt like I was meant to be there, and there was something that really called to me that particular night. And when they asked how many fasters are here, and I had not even thought about it, and I just I'll fast. So I volunteered to fast, and that was my first fast. It was probably it was a young man, and it was a very, for me, it was a very it was almost like an awakening, I guess, in some way, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of things. I never looked at the world the same way again, because when you do something spiritual like that, it changes you, and some of the things you experience that are difficult to believe, but like I've seen it with my own eyes. I felt it.
Well, there's something that happens on sort of the last day.
Yeah. You get, you go there and you ask for the things like good health, protection, to have the strength to be able to do things. But you also go there to get to know who you are. And when you stop the water and the food for several days, just like your human grandparents and Creator, they get concerned. Why are you not eating? Why are you not drinking? It's the same thing on the spiritual side. They say they get concerned, and they come. They say they come to see you and visit with you, and because they care about us, even on the spiritual side. So it's important for us to not only get to know the physical world and our grandparents, and we need to get to know that spiritual side as well. And that's how one way Cree people and other Indigenous cultures are able to do that.
You are fluent in Cree, and you talk in your book of being able to speak to people in your language, and some people who aren't able to, and how that there's some bonds that you make because of your fluency in it. What does it mean to you and your family that you are able to speak your language?
Well, for me, I feel like I'm very fortunate to be able to speak my language. And because I meet a lot of people who aren't able to speak their language, and I feel really bad for them, because I know they're trying to reconnect, they're trying to learn their language, and it's very difficult for them, not growing up around their language, not hearing it, and not able to speak it. And I hear that it's almost like a mourning, like I feel that sort of it kind of give off that kind of feeling. So I've just been very, very fortunate that I was able to learn my language, and I think a big part of that was because a lot of Far North bands are they have very strong language retention because of the isolation.
You sort of describe yourself as a teacher when you talk about your Sweat Lodge, but even through language as well. And I'm curious, how does your vocation as a teacher overlap with being a musician?
Oh, good question. I think, well, in the music, I always tried to do it in a way. I mean, it's a little bit politically driven, but it's always been that way. But I always try to take, it may be, even if it's not about something that's very positive, I always try to get to a better place with the music. I believe it's for everyone, and like the book, I tried to make this book for everyone. And so I've always tried to use music in a way that is, just sort of universal themes that we all can kind of understand and we can all relate to. And yeah, I mean, some of the music is teaching. We talk about, in some of the songs I talk about loss, I talk about, some of the songs are in Cree, so those are some of the songs I thought that would be really good to make, so people can, learn to sing the song in Cree, and then they are also learning at the same time about their language. So those are some of the ways I try to use music as teaching tools.
you describing carrying water from the age of 5 up until today as an act of love. Tell me about that.
Well, from the earliest age, we used to have these little pails that were small, and we bought them at the Hudson's Bay. They usually lard in there, so we always had one for water and just carrying different things. So my grandma made me go get water to fill the washer for dishes and bathing or whatever. It's like a daily thing, and then we did snow in winter, which we collected in those. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but the Canada Post bag, they're usually blue or orange or bright colors, but we use those because they're made of polyester.
So it won't break.
And yeah, so we use those, and we fill them with snow. And we also had a barrel that we used in the winter that we would put down sideways, and my grandfather cut a hole through the top, and we'd fill that thing with a little cup because they keep the ice open. They keep a hole in the ice open all winter long, so we could put in ice, snow, and water, and we kind of mix it all together. So that was kind of our job. We do that on the little snow machine. The tools sort of varied, to collecting water, but it was, I remember it always being my job, and it still is, my job. My sons, it's their job now to make sure that we have the water.
Throughout your book, you talk about sort of these key moments, one where you go hunting and stuff like that, but even something as simple as, that we look at here, something as simple as getting water. What's the message to your son in that moment?
Well, for me, it's not just like a chore, it's a philosophy, and I think it's a rhythm, of life that we get into up there, whether it's building or we harvest something to eat with our hands. It's always something to do with our hands. I think getting water, it's physically demanding, and it does feel like an inconvenience, and some days there's a lineup. It's something that we do because we have to do it. It's not a choice for us up there. And even though it's difficult some days to push yourself to make sure, if you're down with the flu, like you got to get water still. Like, you're down for the flu for a few days, you still got to go and do it. Like, it's not like, no, I'm going to do it when I'm better. No, it's like you got to get up and go get it. It's something I accept, and even though it's very hard at times, I still think I live a very beautiful life up there.
A lot has probably changed from how you grew up and where you grew up in Attawapiskat to what it is now. Can you tell us a little bit? Is there a big change in sort of what you see that is always home, that will always be home for you? But has it changed a lot?
There's been change. In some ways, though, I feel like we still live in the Stone Age, or still living in the Stone Age. But there has been change. I think. The water has improved. The water quality has improved. From having no running water as a kid up until it was like 95, 90, 98. I think we got plumbed. Our house got plumbed, so we didn't have anything prior to that. So yes, there have been changes, but you could never drink the water from the tap for many years. That water is like poison, drinking poison. So, and people bathe in that, and the information, the advice we were getting from Health Canada was do not bathe longer than 2 minutes in that water. Don't breathe the vapors from the water tap. So when you hear those kinds of things, you're just like, what? Like, what is going on here? Anyone, I think, would find that very, very alarming.
With that, those, unfortunately, those are the headlines that a lot of people read. But I'm curious, what do you want people to know Attawapiskat for?
We're not asking to be rescued. We're active participants in our own lives, and I think we are surviving. We all are in a rhythm of survival up there. We have a wealth of knowledge about how to survive on the land. And I think most of us that are up there choose to live there because we love the lifestyle. As I mentioned earlier, you can live a very hard life, but you can also have a very beautiful life at the same time. Those two things can coexist. And I love the connection to the land. I love the Cree culture, the Cree tradition. That's why I'm there.
Adrian, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it.
I ain't ashamed of where I came from. I hold my head up high.